As through a text, the wearer's shape is seen, where reached through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent light and transcendent sight.
Sight, yes. And remember the D on and.
Okay. And
Yes. So he's speaking of these forms that these forms to the hidden absolute.
mhm,
They're seen like a dress through the wearer's shape. When you have a
mhm,
very fine dress and you can see the body through it. So
mhm.
that's what he's saying here. And it's a cosmic feeling and it's a transcendent sight. And now he's going to continue on that. He's going to tell us about how these things looked to Ashwapati in this book one, Canto 5, the Yoga Spirits, the Yoga of the Spirit's Freedom and Greatness. So
Okay,
please continue.
sure. Okay. Increased and heightened were the instruments. Illusion lost her aggrandizing lens. As from her failing hand the measures fell, atomic looked the things that loomed so large.
See, because to the divine side, the things that we feel are so large, they just look to the divine like an atom, atomic.
Yeah.
So so illusion has this lens that seems to blow up everything, to make everything large, but but it's not so when the divine sees it, or even any any yogi sees it from a higher side of experience. These little things that loomed so large to us, these problems of anger and these problems of hatred, they're small things, they're atomic.
Mm-hmm.
So now the little egos ring.
The little ego's ring could join no more in the enormous space of the self.
No, spaces.
Okay, sorry. In the enormous spaces of the self, the body now seemed only a wandering shell. His mind, the many frescoed outer court of an imperishable inhabitant.
Imperishable. Imperishable.
Imperishable. Okay.
Yeah,
In,
not able. We don't say able, we say
Urban,
imperishable.
okay. Of an imperishable inhabitant, his spirit breathed a superhuman air.
It breathed.
Breathed. Okay, breathed.
His spirit breathed this superhuman air. So Ashwapati has made such advance in his consciousness, in his on his way to being the avatar. So please continue.
The imprisoned deity rent its magic fence
Yeah,
as
so
found.
he is the imprisoned deity, Ashwapati, because it's Sri Aurobindo speaking through as Ashwapati. So it tore this magic fence. And so
Uh-huh.
everything is opened up. When you rent something, you tear it. It's
Mhm.
a different definition of rent. Huh?
Rent it. Yeah.
Okay. So
As with
now
the sound,
more and more, he's going to tell you what has happened when he tore this magic fence.
got it. Okay. As with the sound of thunder and of seas, vast barriers crashed around the human escape.
No, the huge escape.
Oh, sorry, the huge escape.
There's no human there.
Okay.
It's Ashwapati's escape,
Uh-huh.
and these vast barriers that were holding him in this magic fence, they've crashed with the sound of thunder and of seas. These vast barriers crashed around Ashwapati's huge escape.
Yes,
But
okay.
now he's going to be of the same, he's going to be a contemporary, coeval. He's going to be a contemporary of the world, or with the world.
Okay. Immutably coeval with the world, circle and end of every hope and toil, inexorably drawn,
Inexorably,
inexorably,
inexorably, inexorably drawn round thought and act.
again, inexorably, okay. Inexorably drawn around thought and act, the
And
fixed
we
and
say
act,
you're saying and instead of and.
okay, and act,
We have to read the
inexorably drawn around thought and act, the fixed, immovable
per-
peripheries,
peripheries.
peripheries effaced themselves beneath the incarnate's tread.
Again, it's incarnate.
Incar-
Yeah, not a, but incarnate.
incarnate. Okay. Okay.
So we are seeing now that he is contemporary, immutably, not susceptible to change, immutably coeval with the world. He is now the circle and end of every hope and toil. And it's not possible to change that. Inexorably drawn round thought and act, even these peripheries which are fixed and immovable, now efface, wipe themselves out beneath the incarnate's tread.
Okay.
These are challenging lines, but we can understand them when we go a little slower and deeper.
Okay. Right. The dire Vilman and
Delleman, yes,
and the bottomless script between which life and thought forever move.
and Miss the D again.
Oh my goodness. Okay. The dire Vilman and the bottomless script between which life and thought forever move, forbidden still to cross the dim, dread bounds, the guardian darknesses, mute and formidable, empowered to circumscribe the wingless spirit in the boundaries of mind and ignorance, protecting no more a dual eternity, vanished, rescinding their enormous role. Once figure of creation's vain ellipse, the expanding zero lost its giant curve.
Yeah, so actually, this is quite a long sentence, a long and a complex sentence, so we have to go through it very slowly. So he begins with immutably coeval, okay? He's of the same age or period with the world. He is the circle and he is the end of every hope and toil. Inexorably, in other words, not capable of being persuaded by entreaty, or relentless, you could say, relentlessly drawn round thought and act. These peripheries that are fixed and immovable now have wiped themselves out, effaced themselves beneath the incarnate's tread. And the incarnate is the one embodied in flesh, the divine. So now we have even more complex lines. The dire velamen. Dire here is dreadful or desperate. The dire velamen. The velamen is a membranous covering. There's a
Okay.
in our bodies, huh? And the bottomless crypt, the chamber, between which life and thought forever move, forbidden still to cross the dim, dread bounds, the guardian darknesses, mute and formidable, empowered to circumscribe the wingless spirit. So these darknesses are empowered. They have the power to enclose, restrict within limits the wingless spirit. And where do they enclose them? In the boundaries of mind and ignorance.
Okay.
And then what happens? Well, they are no longer protecting a dual eternity because to Ashwapati or Sri Aurobindo, they have vanished now. They have given up their enormous role. And one time, when they were a figure of creation's vain ellipse, this closed pane, this a circular cone plane that has a plane cutting through it, that's an ellipse.
Okay.
Then, once this expanding zero was a figure of creation's vain ellipse, now it has lost its giant curve. And Madhav Pandit tells us that zero does not stand for nothing. Zero does not signify emptiness, but has behind it the face of the immortal. So
Yes.
now we have these vetoes. And what is he going to tell us about these vetoes?
The old adamantine vetoes stood no more, overpowered by earth and nature's obsolete rule. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen God, abolished were the scripts of destiny.
So what we are seeing here in uh, in Sri Aurobindo's, we could almost say his actual experience. Huh?
Mhm.
We are seeing that this expanding zero now has lost this giant curve. And what has happened? The old adamantine, the old unyielding vetoes stood no more. Adamantine.
Okay.
Overpowered, in fact, were earth and nature's obsolete rule. They were the obsolete rule of nature. And the python coils of the restricting law. See how things are coiled in? They're 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 enveloped. They're encircled. They're coiled. This restricting law that prohibits us from many things could
Mhm.
not restrain Ashwapati, who is the swift arisen God, and therefore abolished were the scripts of destiny.
Okay.
So now we're going to see who Sri Aurobindo has become.
Okay. There was no small, death hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from an all swallowing immensity.
So Sri Aurobindo has gone so high above all these laws, above all these constrictions, these things that envelop us, that he's no longer the dead hunted creature anymore.
Mm.
He he doesn't even have any fragile form of being to preserve. And we know from Mother that Sri Aurobindo didn't die because of some illness.
Mhm.
Yes, it was said that he had some urinary problems, but that's only a physical thing. Sri Aurobindo left his body so he could put it in the earth and manifest and uh, put in the supramental in matter.
Mhm.
Now, 6 years later, in 1956, the supramental pours down when Mother breaks open that golden lid with the hammer. Remember? So Sri Aurobindo has established it in matter,
Mhm.
and therefore he doesn't have any fragile form of being to preserve his own body from an all swallowing immensity. So, what else is happening now? The
Okay.
great,
The great hammer beats of a pent up world heart burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe.
you see, I would read that second line a little differently. Burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe. These are narrow dams that, the dam holds the water back, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so these great hammer beats of this pent up, when something is pent up, it's tied up. It's a
Okay.
tied up world, it's a tied up world heart. And then these hammer beats burst open these narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. Yeah, it's a difficult passage, but we're beginning to understand that Ashwapati has broken through all of these things. He,
Understood.
he is no longer a fragile form of being. He is he's a swift arisen God. In fact, it says could not restrain the swift arisen God, and therefore all these scripts of destiny, such as we have, going to be born, you're going to live for a while, then you're going to die. All these things don't mean anything anymore because it's the Lord now who's manifesting as the avatar.
So Narad can say that he's almost reached that state of infinite or immortality, right?
I would say that absolutely, because he's going to tell you more now.
Okay,
So read a little bit more, and
sure.
then you can read everything. Just go a few more lines because it's important.
The soul and cosmos faced as equal powers.
Yes, so the soul of Ashwapati Sri Aurobindo is facing the cosmos as equal powers. A couple more lines.
Sure. A boundless being in a measureless time invaded nature with the infinite. He saw, unpacked, unwalled his titan scope.
So now this is the sense of the Titan because it's not capitalized. It
Mhm,
just means huge, gigantic
mhm.
scope, immense scope.
Yeah.
So he is now seeing, this is Ashwapati, he
Mhm,
has invaded nature with the infinite. He is a boundless being in a measureless time. And also, he sees unpath, in other words, there's no path,
mhm.
unwalled, no walls, his titan scope. Extraordinary. So you've got a lot to read
Sure.
and quite a few new words too, new
Yes.
pronunciations anyway. Good.
Okay. So I'll go back to the page 82 and start from line.
Yes, please, please, yes.
As, as through a dress, the wearer's shape is seen, there reach through forms to the hidden absolute, a cosmic feeling and transcendent sight, increased and heightened were the instruments. Illusion lost her aggrandizing lens.
Aggrandizing.
Aggrandizing. Okay. Aggrandizing. Illusion lost her aggrandizing lens.
Good.
As from her failing hand the measures fell, atomic looked the things. that loomed so large, the little ego's ring could join no more in the enormous spaces of the self. The body now seemed only a wandering shell. His mind, the many frescoed outer coat of an imperishable inhabitant, his spirit breathed a superhuman air.
I didn't give you the definition of frescoed. Many
Uh-huh.
frescoes. When something is frescoed, it's painted on moist plaster.
Okay,
So you see in these great old churches, they would have the moist plaster and they would paint these great things on that.
okay,
So
okay.
the paint reacts in a different way. It
Mhm.
gets absorbed in a different way. So now his mind is like this many frescoed outer court of an imperishable inhabitant. This is Ashwapati.
Okay,
Carry on.
sure. His spirit breathed a superhuman air. The imprisoned deity rent its magic fence, as with a sound of thunder and of seas, vast barriers crashed around the huge escape.
Now you're not really looking at the periods, the full stops. So first you had the imprisoned deity rent its magic fence. Not magic fence,
Mhm.
because it's full stop. So
Okay,
this deity has torn through this magic
magic
fence.
fence.
And the same thing with the huge escape.
Okay.
So look at the punctuation.
Mhm.
Carry carry on.
Okay.
Doing doing great. That's the imprisoned deity.
The imprisoned deity rent its magic fence, as with a sound of thunder and of seas, vast barriers crashed around the huge escape, immutably coeval with the world, circle and end of every hope and toil, inexorably drawn,
No, inexorably.
inexorably,
Inexorably.
inexorably. So R is silent. Uh,
Yeah,
inex-
inexorably.
okay,
Horribly. Or
horribly. Okay,
horrible. Inexorably.
inexorably
No,
drawn around thought and act. No,
it's close. Inexorably. Inexorably.
inexorably, inex-
Yes, that's it. You got it. I
inexorably
think
drawn.
yeah, inexorable is relentless. You can't persuade it to change.
Okay, yep. Inexorably drawn around thought and act.
But
The
it's not around. You're saying inexorably drawn round? No, inexorably drawn round thought and act.
okay, it goes with drawn. Okay, inexorably drawn round thought and act
Yes.
in the boundaries of mind and ignorance, protecting no more a dual eternity, vanished rescinding their enormous role, once figure of creation's vain ellipse, the expanding zero lost its giant curve, the old adamantine vetoes stood no more, overpowered where earth and nature's obsolete rule. The python coils of the restricting law could not restrain the swift arisen God, abolished,
Arisen, arisen, not a reason. Arisen.
arisen, okay, could not restrain the swift arisen God,
No,
ab-
arisen.
arisen, arisen,
Yes, arisen.
arisen God, abolished with the scripts of destiny. There was no small, death hunted creature more, no fragile form of being to preserve from an all swallowing immensity. The great hammer beats of a pent up world heart burst open the narrow dams that keep us safe against the forces of the universe. The soul and cosmos faced as equal powers, a boundless being in a jealous time invaded nature with the infinite. He saw unpacked, unwalled his titan's
Challenging passage.
challenging and a lot of words that are not being
Exactly.
pronounced clearly. So
But
I
see,
will
now
support you.
now I hear everything. I hear every word you're saying now. And
Okay.
then I was losing lines, but I guess they'll be recorded all right. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I'll keep working on these pronunciations and
good.
maybe record it one more time myself.
Great.
Thank you so much, Narad sir. Thanks
See
for your
you
time.
next week. Huh?
Sure. See you.
Glad you're feeling better.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks again.